In today's session, I'll be guiding you through a traditional Zentangle tile, but we'll get to the art in just a moment. First, I wanted to do a little channel housekeeping, so to speak, just a couple items. As you may or may not know, based on a post I made recently here on the channel, I, just a few days ago, hit a very important milestone for my channel. 500 plus subscribers and over 15,000 views. That's fantastic. I cannot tell you how excited I am about that. Now, I've got a long ways to go yet before I reach some of the important goals I have for this channel, and long before I can do any monetization here. But I am super grateful for all of you who've been viewing my videos, commenting, sharing with others, and of course, subscribing. Channels like this on YouTube can't survive without the support of its viewers. So we always tread that tightrope of doing the things that we love, that we came to YouTube to do, but also trying to do the material and the content that our viewers will find interesting, inspiring, or just plain fun. So thank you again, all of you, for all that you've done to make it this far for this channel. Also, as a celebration of sorts for hitting that important milestone, I'm planning to do a live session here within the next week or so. During the live session, we'll have a chance to just chat a little bit back and forth. You can send messages, I'll respond. But we'll also go through a live drawing session and create a piece of art together. And depending on the time and the interest level and the participation level, we may do more than one piece of art. But we'll kind of see how that goes the day that we're actually live. So keep your eyes open and your ears peeled, as they say, or your ears open and your eyes peeled, however that goes. And you'll get the news either through another announcement here on the video in my Discord channel, or if you just are watching the posts and so forth on the YouTube channel, you should see an announcement there as well. So thank you so very much for everyone, and to everyone for your participation and for making this possible so far. I'm just really excited about what the next steps for this journey will be and how many great opportunities I'm going to have to share my passion with drawing and Zentangle and the whole package with all of you. So thanks again, and let's get into that drawing for today. For today's drawing, there's not much preparation needed, but we are going to use our pencils just for a moment to create a few guidelines for the drawing that we'll be doing. So we'll start with our tile, and we're going to draw a diagonal line from left to right corners, and again from those left to right corners. Obviously, you can draw in whatever direction works best for you. Then we'll also draw a line right down the center, and we'll turn and draw another line right down the center as well. As you can see by the multiple lines I made, we don't have to worry about precision or even making a little mess as we try to divide up our tile with this X and this cross shape just to help us guide the drawing that we're going to do. So now we can move right in. I'm going to use a PN micron here, and we're going to start with a tangle called Flux. Now, I believe we've used this in one or more drawings here on the channel, but it's a super common, super popular, and very flexible, useful tangle. In fact, what we're going to do with it, we're going to use it both as a string to draw our other tangles in, and we're going to use it as a tangle as well within the same drawing. So at first we're going to create a really large version of it, like a leaf, that comes out from the center, reaches out toward that corner, and just sort of comes back. And you can use your pencil lines there as a guide and sort of go out in the same way to roughly the same spot in each of our 4 quadrants. And they don't have to be precisely the same size, obviously. I'm not doing any measuring that way, just eyeball based on where those pencil lines are. And we'll create 4 large flux shapes. We're going to go about halfway up on this shape. So starting here to here, this is about halfway, and we're going to draw right out to the edge of our tile where that other pencil line is that we drew, and then back down in the same way. Just like that. And we'll do that to all 4 sides. And they don't have to be perfectly across from one another, but if you wanted to eyeball that as well, that's fine. It'll just create a little more natural symmetry to your overall pattern. kind of want to make a slightly curved line star looking shape here. That's kind of what we're going for. On the edge of the tile, we're going to make what looks like it's going to be a frame, but it really isn't going to be that way. We're just going to draw kind of a reverse L shape right out to the edge, and then we'll follow or aura these other lines that are already in place, and we're going to close out this shape. So we're just going to aura around this one now. And you can turn this, make it more comfortable for your hand, and just create a closed area like that. We'll do that to all four of these sides. I've slightly repositioned my camera here, so I keep finding myself drifting back to the old spot, and it's keeping things off your view there, so I apologize for that. I'll get used to this new setup soon, I hope, for your sake. We're almost done with our shape. We're going to now draw from the center straight out to the corner of those pieces that we drew between our flux petals. Just a straight line, dividing that triangle, if you will, or now it's a diamond, I guess, once we connect it to everything. So we end up with a shape that looks like that. So in these little corner pieces that we made, go right to the center. Let me zoom in a little bit further for you. We want to go right to the center and come curve line upward, and right about where this little area tightens down or becomes a little hallway or a little valley, that's where I'm going to draw a little dot like that. Just a simple ornamentation here, so it doesn't have to be anything super precise, but we want to do that same thing now in all four of these corners. Looking at your tile, obviously it should be roughly the same in every direction, but once you choose what you want the top to be, then find the right and the left top sides of these little diamonds, and we're going to create an aura inside of these. So you'll start in one of the corners, aura to the other corner, and then stop and go up to that corner, and then down till that line meets, and we're creating a little triangle within this shape. So we'll do the same thing on the other side, the mirrored side here. Now in these inner pieces, we want to draw a line straight from the center, and then we're going to draw lines evenly spaced as we can all the way across this little triangle shape that we just made. So we get there, and then we just, if you want to, I'm just showing you a way, you can flip it. That way you keep the part that you're making an aura of to your left every time. If you're right-handed, that's super helpful. If not, if you're left-handed, or if it doesn't matter, then you go ahead and just draw these lines however is convenient for you. But we want to fill in that whole little space. And I start here in the center just to give myself a nice straight guideline so I don't end up if I start here and my spacing is off and I get here, it may not be in the center. It might be off one way or the other, and I'm just trying to avoid that, which is why I do that little starting point there. Hopefully that made sense. It just lets me determine where that middle line is going to end up, is what I'm saying. And now we've got our basic pattern down, and we're going to begin drawing our details. And I'm going to choose the top left one right here. And using this pencil line down the center as a guide, I'm going to draw additional flux shapes in the traditional sense, in the traditional size, to fill this area. So I'm using that center line to kind of guide me, and then once I draw some shapes, there's no right or wrong way to draw these. You just fill this in any way you'd like, but I'll show you how I'm going to do it so that I can create a symmetrical or similar pattern on the opposite side. Then I'm going to start here in the center and draw out. Kind of work my way up. So then I'm going to draw a center one. Then another here. And this shape is just that little leaf or teardrop shape. And then I put a line and a dot. Some people like to put 2 dots. Some people do a dashed line. It's completely up to you. There's no right or wrong. Now that we've got that, I'm starting in this space again here. And you can overlap these shapes. They can go over and under each other just like any Zentangle shape. But for my drawing, I'm looking at creating a sort of a pattern, like these leaves are growing and moving outward in this larger shape that we first created. So now here, what do we do here? Well, if we want to keep a similar pattern going, we could draw another centerpiece, but then that looks like it's launching off the top there. So I'm going to go ahead and draw like this. I like the pieces to fit in that little area, and don't worry if you have little gaps. We're going to fill those in, so that's not a problem. So now here I can come out, and now we can fill in these, and you might have to vary your sizes a little bit as you get closer to the end. Now we can do a couple interesting things here, perhaps by curving them a little bit. Just like that. So now I'm going to flip that around and try to do a very similar thing. Again, does not have to be exactly the same, but using that same idea, I'm going to create these going in this opposite direction. We can ink these in all these little spaces in between our flux leaves. Let's just ink those all in. This will take us a moment, so as I tend to do, I may fast forward in the video or move it at a faster speed, but you take the time that you need. Don't feel any rush or pressure. Just pause the video if you need to, and then come back, pick it up when you're ready once you've inked everything in. Okay, so now we can move to our patterns that we're going to fill in these 2 petals. And I've just chosen another very straightforward and simple traditional pattern called Printemps. And that is the one that is a spiral. And we start in the middle, and we just wind it all the way around until we are happy with the size, and then we stop. And we're going to just fill this whole area. Now you can, if you want a very random looking pattern, you can just fill them to any size and start anywhere and then just fill it all in. Or you can start as I've done here on one side and just work your way toward the other. But there's no right or wrong way. So just do this however you'd like. You can vary the size and the width on these, on the space I should say, between the spirals themselves. You can pack them in together. You can stop when they touch, or you can continue and draw behind if you want to make them larger and larger. So we can ink this in. So now we're going to repeat that same process or similar process on this side. So we'll just let you do that and pause the video if need be. So we're ready now for our next step. And we want to do a couple little details here before we fill these in. So on these diamond shapes that are occurring between our flux leaves, we want to draw an aura that looks like a continuation of this line here that will just go on this bottom half, not on the one here, but on the other two. Just out like that. And so we'll flip that over and do the same thing on these. And what we're doing again is sort of making a continuation, but not technically because they don't connect, but just creating that little inner aura line on these two diamond shapes. So once we've done that, we now want to make some aura lines that aura or are parallel to these lines. We just want 3 or 4, depending on the size of your drawing there, that go up like this. They're going to follow the same pattern as that and just go up. Now once we've got them on one side, we know where we want to make our next ones on the same aura on the opposite side. So we'll flip over while we're doing this, and let's do it to the other side. Again, we're going to follow this aura, make them about the same width or thickness that you did a moment ago. And then once you have those starting points, you can carry that aura down. You can do it this way if that's easier, where you can see the line you're trying to aura. But now that we've got this, part of Jonqal is to shade alternating pieces back and forth on these shapes to create a dimensional effect. But instead of shading, because I don't want to overdo this pattern with, or this composition with dark ink, so instead of shading, we're going to use another tangle that we've used a lot and that is immensely useful in Zentangle, and that is Tipple, or the little orbs. So I'm going to pick a side, left or right, and I'm going to start there by just making a whole bunch of little tiny orbs to fill in that area. Now in this tiny spot, it's difficult to see, but then we alternate. So where the corners touch, and we just are going to fill this area with those little tiny orbs. And you're not even having to worry about how they look or are they perfectly smooth and symmetrical. It doesn't matter. It's creating a texture instead of just using straight ink. And so when that's viewed at the desired distance, which is usually about an arm's length for Zentangle drawings, that's just going to look like a little textured pattern that we filled in there. This is very similar to what we did with one of my recent videos where I was showing how to mix and match patterns of different kinds, straight versus curved and so on. And we did a bunch of little orbs on that one as well. So I don't mean this to be a repetition of that, but it is a useful way to add some texturing here without getting into all kinds of additional details, and lets us use some additional tangle patterns in the process. that side is done, so now we'll flip it over and do the same thing here. Now what I would recommend is if you started on the left, start on the left when you orient your tile this way. That way you'll create an opposite pattern here, so you won't have the dark ones on all this, in the same exact pattern. So I started on the left, so I'm going to start on the left here as well. I think one of my earliest videos I mentioned that I love Zentangle because it allows me to warm up and to get my hands and my brain in the right place when I'm getting ready to do other kinds of drawing. So even though I love drawing cartoon characters and little monsters and fictional characters and so on, and scenes and still life, whatever it might be, I often will still resort or start with some Zentangle drawing to warm up my hand and to get my mind to focus on the task at hand. And that really can be fun way to enhance our drawing skills. We're just going to lay some graphite down and blend it with a paper stump, and we're going to be good. So let's do that first. So what I'm going to do, the way I will shade this, I'm going to add a little graphite to the inner corners, or the smallest corners of these Flux leaf shapes. By just adding a little bit down in there, I can blend it outward and give these leaves some tonal values and some shape and sense to them. And I see as I'm doing this that I've missed a couple little dots on my leaves, so I'm going to add those here. Not a big deal, but since I saw it, I'm going to fix that. And then I'm going to do the same shading here. Everybody has a different approach to shading too, even in Zentangle. Some people shade one little area and then they blend it. Then they shade another little area and then they blend it. Other folks, kind of like I tend to do, I add my graphite wherever I think it's going to be needed, and then I blend the entire thing all at once. It just, my brain works a little better that way, and I seem to not miss things as much as I could the other way, and I don't lose track of what I'm doing. But sometimes I have to go back and do a little more and just bring out those details even further. But, so now on these, on the Printemps, I'm going to add just a light layer or a line of graphite around the edge. Now, if you have large areas like this where there's black, I wouldn't recommend putting the graphite there. It won't make any difference visually, and it will simply make the the black areas look shiny. So I usually don't even put the graphite down there. We're gonna by adding this border though to it, it's going to look like these Printemps shapes are recessed down inside that outer leaf piece. Now, if you want, you can also add a little bit where your Printemps shapes overlap, but that is not necessary, especially if you drew them very small or you don't have many overlaps, and then you can just skip that step altogether. So again, I'll do the same here. Now in these areas here, I'm going to add just a little bit of graphite on the long edge, or what would be the bottom edge from when we originally drew it. Just a little bit down here. And then when I blend that out, it's going to have an interesting effect on that. Now for the rest of it, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a graphite line here that I can blend into this white area to make that less boring and a little less flat, adding a little highlighted shape. And then I might even add some graphite to sort of make these look like they're glowing, but I'm going to wait and see how much shading we do here with the blending, and I don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to look at that after the fact. Now on the Jonqal, I'm going to shade one side of this piece, so either this side or this side. So if I do the left here, I'm going to do the right here. Now with those details in place, let's begin to do some blending and see what we've got. You can see how that creates a dimensional look, and those little Printemps shapes look like they are further down or sunken down in to this leaf shape that we first drew, and that's exactly what I wanted, or what we are trying to achieve here. On my flux shapes, I'm just blending this upward a little bit, just softening it. On the Jonqal, I'm just blending this down. I'm just going to leave a little bit of untouched white at the base, or at the, at the opposite edge. Depending on your eye and the angles that you've drawn, it might look like these are coming up, or it might look like they're going down. It just creates a sense of optical illusion for you there. Now along these lines, I'm just going to blend this out. Now these last areas that we put graphite in, this was part of our experiment, or my experiment, to just help bring some form to these as well with some tonal differences. Just blending this upward into this white. So I'm blending it very gently. Little more pressure at first there to pick up the graphite and move it outward. And then I just reduce that pressure lighter and lighter as I go outward away from that original line. I think I'm going to do one additional piece of shading. I wanted to leave some white just all by itself here, but I want to create an angle on this as well. So I'm going to make a little line of graphite right across there on both sides. This is what I said. Sometimes we think we're done, and then we decide, well, I need just a tiny bit of something different here. So I'm going to do kind of like I did up here, just feather this graphite downward. But leave some white there at the base so that we're not coloring this whole area. We're just adding some subtle sense of tone that will really make this shape, I think, look a bit more dimensional. Well, at least that's the plan. And I think that worked. And I think we'll call this session good for today. As always, thank you so very much for joining with me today. I hope that you enjoyed the process. I hope you had fun creating your own piece of Zentangle art. And I look forward to seeing everyone again real soon back here in the Tangles and Tunes channel. Until then, take care. Bye-bye now.